Genghis Khan. The savage storm that shook the world he was born, clutching a blood clot in his fist a sign. They whispered that the boy would become a great warrior. From the cruel steppes of Mongolia, where winter cuts like glass, and men are hardened by hunger and war, Temujin rose, not as a prince born to silk and ceremony, but as a boy who would taste betrayal, murder, starvation, and captivity before carving his name across continents. His name would echo through history as Genghis Khan, the scourge of God, the unifier of tribes, the relentless storm of the East. Temujin's early life was nothing short of a torment ordained by fate. His father, Yasuge, a powerful Mongol chieftain, was poisoned by rivals when Temujin was just a boy. Left fatherless, his family was quickly cast out by their tribe. Abandoned and starving, they lived on wild roots, rats, and the marrow of bones. The steppes were merciless, yet somehow, so was he. Temujin grew into something other than a mere survivor. He grew into a force. Life taught him young that trust could be fatal. His half-brother tried to usurp him. Temujin killed him. Mercy was not a virtue that helped one live long in the Mongolian wilds, and the boy had none to spare. Every injustice, every bitter wound he suffered, would become kindling for the fire that eventually forged an empire.
But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to help us grow our channel.
Temujin's rise was not inevitable. It was hard-won, soaked in blood and betrayal. He began by forging alliances with other clans, not through idle promises, but through blood pacts, clever marriages, and brutal conquest. He offered one thing no other Mongol lord could: a vision. Under his rule, a man's past did not determine his future. Whether slave or noble, the fiercest and most loyal rose. It was a revolution in the lawless tribal world of the Mongols. It terrified his enemies and drew countless warriors to his banner. He battled long-time blood rivals like Jamuka, a childhood blood brother who turned into a fierce enemy. Their feud was legendary, spanning decades. When Temujin finally captured Jamuka after years of war, he did not take swift revenge. Instead, he offered him power and peace. Jamuka refused. And so, Temujin executed him, without torture, without cruelty, but with the cold finality of a man who could not afford sentiment. In that moment, Temujin's destiny crystallized. He had become something more than a tribal warlord. In 1206, after a ruthless campaign that bent the Mongol tribes to his will, he was declared Genghis Khan, universal ruler. It was more than a title. It was a declaration to the world. A new empire had risen from the dust of the steppe, forged not in marble halls, but in the chaos of survival, steel, and unbending will. What followed was perhaps the most astonishing and brutal expansion in human history. Genghis Khan's armies did not march, they thundered. They traveled faster and farther than any force the world had ever seen. They drank horse blood for sustenance, lived in the saddle, and used silk armor that could close around arrows. Their tactics were revolutionary.
Don't forget to subscribe to help us grow our channel.
Feigned retreats, psychological warfare, and absolute obedience turned them into an unstoppable machine. Cities that resisted were razed. Those who surrendered lived off and integrated into his empire, sometimes even welcomed. He stormed into the lands of the Shishaya and Jin dynasties of China, not with blind rage, but with calculated devastation. His hatred for betrayal knew no end, and when the Khwarezmian Shah had his trade caravans slaughtered and his emissaries humiliated and killed, Genghis responded with an annihilation so thorough that cities like Nishapur were drenched in rivers of blood. In one infamous episode, when his beloved son-in-law was killed during the siege of Nishapur, Genghis ordered the massacre of every man, woman, and child. The death toll reached hundreds of thousands. The earth drank deeply, and Genghis moved on, unshaken. And yet, beneath the carnage, there was a strange paradox. Genghis Khan, the destroyer of cities, was also a bringer of order. He created one of the first international postal systems, the Yam. He promoted meritocracy, religious tolerance, and even codified laws, the Yasa, that applied to all under his reign. He banned kidnapping and slavery within the empire, protected the poor from exploitation, and ruthlessly punished corruption. It was as if the storm he unleashed came not only to destroy the old world, but to remake it in harsher, cleaner lines. He respected all faiths: Buddhists, Muslims, Christians, even shamans. What mattered was loyalty, not belief. A man could bow to Buddha or Allah as long as he bowed to Genghis Khan first. This unorthodox approach stunned the fractured kingdoms he conquered. Where Europe was tearing itself apart over religion, Genghis opened his empire to every voice, every tongue, and he listened. To astrologers, to spies, to the wisdom of defeated generals. He believed that information, not brute force, would win the world. His spy networks were vast, his maps more accurate than any in Europe at the time. The Mongol horde didn't merely kill, they studied, they planned, they adapted. But his victories came at unimaginable cost. Samarkand, Bukhara, Merv, once jewels of Central Asia, were left in smoldering ruin. The Mongol conquests killed tens of millions, and entire cultures vanished in the wake of the Khan's fury. To some, he was a demon. To others, a god. To history, he was both. As he aged, Genghis began to plan for the future of his empire. He split his realm among his sons, though it would continue to expand under the likes of Ogedei and later Kublai Khan. He urged them to remain united, to honor their blood and their ancestors, and to continue pushing the frontiers of Mongol power. But he must have known the world he had built could never fully be held together. Even his death was cloaked in mystery. Some say he fell from his horse, others whisper of assassination, or that he died in a final battle. The truth, like the man himself, may never be fully known. His tomb has never been found, despite centuries of searching. It remains hidden somewhere in the steppes he once ruled, untouched. Perhaps protected by the spirits of those who still fear the wrath of the Khan. And yet Genghis Khan lives, not in flesh, but in blood. His genetic legacy stretches across millions. His DNA can be traced in modern populations from the Pacific to the Caspian Sea. He carved an empire that reached from Korea to Hungary, from the Arctic tundra to the Indian Ocean. At its peak, it was the largest contiguous land empire the world has ever seen. But more than empire, it was the force of his will that echoes through time. Genghis Khan was not just a conqueror. He was a storm that swept across the world, a paradox of cruelty and progress, destruction and unity. He shattered civilizations, but he also connected them. He tore down borders, and in doing so, paved roads that traders, thinkers, and even peace would follow. He began life in obscurity, born in a cold yurt among wild grasses, hated and hunted, nearly nothing. And yet, in the span of one lifetime, he became master of half the known world. Genghis Khan was no mere man. He was history made flesh, an avalanche of bone and iron, a legend carved into the earth with hooves and blood. And the world, though it trembled under his fury, would never again be the same.
Don't forget to subscribe to help us grow our channel.